And welcome everybody to the Between Two Wheels podcast, coming to you from Northern California. This is Tyler Janke. On today's show, the world is canceled, but is your fitness? Lance Armstrong says he took advantage of something, I don't know, some crisis with Ian Contador. We'll talk about that. Tour de France, UCI, all schedule changes, and USA Cycling, they make provisional changes for the national championships. We'll do maybe some listener mailbag. But what did Chris say? Chris Flower on the show with us. Welcome to the Between Two Wheels podcast. Episode 71. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm fine. It looks like you're in your makeshift office. I'm in my makeshift old office. So those who watch on YouTube, you might not be able to tell a difference.
Yeah, no, it looks like you drove down to Rancho and you're all set up. That's good stuff.
No, I'm not really going into the office much. Why don't you give since you haven't been in for a while and I've been just kind of soloing back and forth here. First of all, how are you doing? You doing any bike riding? You working at all? What's your status? Tell us. COVID infected?
I'm still working. I've got a lovely telecommute setup going at the moment. I sneak in the office about once a week, but yeah, for the most part, everything's telecommute. We don't have a dedicated office in the house, so I kind of converted one of the guest rooms into an office, and it's working.
Right.
Riding, not so much. It's one of those things where I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday, where I don't have a commute now, so I've got this extra hour throughout the day that I could probably utilize for bike riding, but I haven't really done that.
You haven't taken advantage. And here I am, the one that's I'm totally taking advantage of it. It's an odd thing for me because my fitness is really, really coming up, but so is my eating. I'm not curbing one of those back, and it's because I think just in the house, the food's a little more accessible. I'm just bored at times too. And I have found that I have a problem with just sitting around, so like, I feel like I have to be doing something so I feel productive, maybe to justify to my wife or something. So I'm reading like books, I'm reading like nonfiction books. I'm trying to always do something, but in the same respect, I'm shoving my face with food.
See, I've definitely taken the shoving food in my face, like in full stride, but I haven't been doing the bike riding to combat that, to kind of keep things in check. So, I've definitely stayed busy, but I've done some chores around the house that I've been meaning to do that I've been putting off. So I've taken advantage of that time. So I kind of dug up part of the backyard, been doing a little bit of furniture fabrication on the side as well, just to kind of get some things done that I've been meaning to get done for a while. So I've used the time for other things, not directly cycling related. So there's been some pluses.
Have you picked up any new skills?
Gotten really good at teleconferencing. I don't know if that's really a great skill to have, but it's amazing how, so my work, we've gone through, I think, 3 different formats for teleconferencing in the past month and a half. So kind of getting exposure to all those different options has been interesting.
Right.
So it's a skill that maybe there'll be some carryover down the road, but I don't know. I'm not super excited about it.
Yeah, I'm always looking for like a little bit more efficiencies, and I've seen some of the courts are doing some online. Like if you had an emergency, that's only they're not doing much. But like if there was an emergency hearing, they did a Skype one. That was interesting. They're being able to do some filing electronically now, which has not at all been the case before. So I'm kind of excited about that. Maybe there'll be some new things coming up, some streamlining things. So, and I'm sure all companies, we've talked about those kind of things, are going to kind of have all that. What about this?
I'm sure you want to get in the weeds on this.
I don't mind.
Have you noticed consistency or inconsistency on a county level basis for that, or is it just all over the map?
So every morning I get up and look. So I'm a family law attorney. My main job is court. I mean, whether going to court, preparing for court, cool down from court, whatever. There's always other little things you can do. But so my work is really taking a hit. So every day I'm looking to see what the status is, and there's 4 courts in the counties that I kind of deal with: Yolo County, Sacramento, El Dorado, and Placer. Every single one is different. Matter of fact, I have one county is like they're not having hearings, but then some are having hearings. One is still having trials in some respect. And now this is the family law side, not, because criminal, they're still doing a little bit of things. One county is pushing things off till May 8th. The other one's May 15. Another one's May 18. They're all different. So every day I have to go in there and they change things. So yes, county by county, they're getting guidance from the state. And then the judicial council kind of gets an outline, and then each county is just doing some things differently. So it's a bit confusing. So it gives me justification to do a little work and to tell those clients, not today.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So just thinking of in the woods or in the weeds and some things that are changing here, adaption. Obviously, Zwift is probably the big thing taking off. There's other forms and other racing things I've seen as well. Have you seen anything exciting or cool come out of this yet? That's like, some innovation or something that you hadn't noticed of before?
For me personally, not really, because I'm at best a casual Zwift user. So I started using it, I don't know, 3-4 years ago when I dislocated my shoulder, being an idiot. So I got to spend some time on it back then. And I know a lot of people have kind of expanded their use of it well beyond that in the past 3 years. So I know that there's racing. I know that there's group rides. I know that you can kind of ride with each other and chat with each other. And those are features that I haven't really done much with. I wouldn't even know where to begin to go and go about racing. So most that I do for Zwift, which is a fantastic program, by the way, I think you should try it. It's fun. Is just basically the equivalent of like just riding around. Like you can set up structured workouts in there, but I just kind of, I'm going to go kill an hour and I'm going to ride the trainer, maybe go climb some hills. So in that sense, it's fun for me because it's better than just kind of the monotony of riding the trainer, but at the same time, you are kind of getting some terrain mixed in and whatnot. So
right,
it's out there.
I would have to clear the boys out of the garage, which is like the game room, and then it's just not going to happen. So, but we'll keep that in mind. If I have bad weather or we get told we are completely locked down, then I'll do so. But I'm right up in the foot, where I live, up in the foothills area, right next to it, and I just cruise up there. And next thing you know, there's no one out there, and I think it's safe. Unless you think you want to argue. Speaking of which, did a ride kind of out in the middle. The ride I did last weekend, out in the middle of nowhere. Matter of fact, we rode up to a gate that was locked. There was just no cars anywhere we saw. And I posted a picture on Instagram, and I had a local up there that chimed in. He happened to formerly be one of my clients. And he's like, we don't want your COVID up here. And I mean, he was pretty harsh, but I'm like, you just stay indoors. I mean, you park in the middle of nowhere, you ride in the middle of nowhere, you see nobody. I don't know. You want to come down on me too? Social distance warrior, or
was this the Mosquito Ridge area, or
yes.
Is this somewhere?
Well, okay. Should I say now? I don't
know.
I mean, I did post
was
on.
Was this the area with lots of climbing and descending?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I could see people being a little shut off there. I don't know. I rode outside once, and I just did I have a little loop that I do from home that includes like an 8-minute climb and a 2-minute climb, and then like 10 minutes of recovery. And I just do that a few times. That was maybe a month ago. There were so many people out on the bike trail and road that it was just overwhelming, and even just climbing a hill felt a little unsafe. So I've kind of taken it upon myself just to kind of seclude myself to the trainer for most of my riding.
Well, my wife and daughter, and they went on some rides, and they were complaining about the people on the bike path. And my daughter, who she hasn't really been riding, just for fun, just getting on a bike, right? So she doesn't do any riding. She's like, and there's a sign that says bikes stay on this side, walkers stay on this side, going this way. And she's like, people are all over the road. So the bike path is crazy because they can't. I'm like, I know school's out, but you could still read, right? It says it's pretty plain, pretty simple.
Yeah.
And
she got vacation, so it doesn't apply.
I guess. One last thing, and then we'll kind of do some of the other was this really bothers me. I don't know why. And I maybe made an ass of myself the other day, but these neighbors a few streets over, and I always happen to ride or drive past there. They've taken it on themselves to put those signs out in the road that say, slow, kids are playing.
Yeah.
And it's not like my court, which is pretty mellow. It's a little busier through street. They put it in the middle of the road. Okay, that's annoying as it is. Teach your kids how to not be in the road. But then they think that since that's there, they just play in the middle of the road. So they're constantly in the dad, the kids, they're in the middle of the road playing. And someone's going to get hit, and it's not going to be my fault. I'm not saying it was me, but it seems out of Teach your
I've
kids
got that
to
down
play.
at the end of the road as well. Like I've lived in my house for a few years now, and the folks down at the end of the street, their kids have gone from infants to maybe 4 or 5 years old. So they've
Yeah.
got one of those out in the street as well. And the kids just kind of run across the street unwatched. And it's like, well, I don't think the sign is necessarily
No.
a guardian or babysitter. You still got to kind of
Right.
control the situation.
Right. And then that's why we don't put them up. And then we teach our kids to, avoid traffic. And then they're going to be the ones that are probably going to stay alive. That's my goal.
I think your kids are old enough not to justify having one of those out, though.
I don't know.
That might embarrass them a little
19-year-old. Okay. So let's do some main points here.
Yeah.
It's Friday and we could go have our happy hour.
Where?
Tour has been postponed. So ASO announced the 2020 Tour de France is not canceled, but has been postponed. So on Wednesday, the 15th, Tour de France organizer ASO announced that the race would not start on the planned date of June 28th, but would instead run from August 29 until September 20. What do you think about them? I mean, they're really wanting to run this race. And what do you think about them doing so and actually, still postponing rather than not canceling it altogether?
I've read a little bit on this, and again, I think we had chatted or texted about this last week, where there was that Cycling Tips has the secret pro thing,
right.
And whoever writes that, whether it's a group of people or one person, who knows, they had said that they're looking to get the Grand Tours back on late in the season. The take that they had is that, in the event these actually happen this year, to kind of make it as fair as possible for everybody, the people that will actually be racing will be the natives of the host country. So the Tour de France, really, it'll only be the French guys riding. Everybody else is just kind of filling out the peloton. And then the same for Spain and the same for Italy. I think that's an interesting idea, because in that sense, you kind of keep the competition fair, because at this point, not everybody is in a position where they can train well enough to come in prepared to be competitive. I saw
Gilbert,
a Belgian rider get get cited
Philippe Gilbert
for training, right? And it's like, so are you going to encourage people to go out and knowingly break the law to stay fit to be competitive? I don't know. I don't think the races will happen. That's my thought. Granted, we're in, mid-April at this point, and they're proposing August, September. It seems like France in particular is in a really odd state. I think they're in a higher level of lockdown than we are. And maybe that will get better or worse over the next couple months, but it just seems like there's so many opportunities for rebound with the crowds that will inevitably form with, it doesn't take much for one rider to get sick if you're already kind of compromising your immune system by just running yourself ragged. It just seems like the risk there is pretty high to get somebody in the peloton sick and then have another UAE type situation where, what do you do then? You pull everybody out of the race and lock them down? Or
right.
How do you handle that? It just seems like there's more than just 150 riders that play. You've got the team managers, you've got the mechanics, you've got the drivers, you've got the officials. I mean, it's probably close to 1,000 people that's always on the move. And it just seems like that's a huge potential to get somebody sick or who knows what.
Right. And I think this whole thing is, and this is the same thing the courts are doing that we talked about earlier. They okay, we're going to reschedule. So everything that was kind of in there, they keep pushing it out, and they're pushing it out, and it's a tentative movement with the hopes that all of a sudden it just like dissipates. And then boom, so we could get this on calendar, because it's, the Tour de France is a big deal. And more and more, I mean, when obviously the Vuelta's, the Giro's already passed. The Vuelta is the only one that's kind of sitting there going, hey, we may be okay. Who knows?
Right. Now, do you know, I haven't really looked at the revised UCI schedule. What about the other races that would typically occur in that window?
So it looks like to me, and we could talk about that actually now, here is the UCI schedule. And let me just share the screen here so you can take a look at it. And those that would like to, let's see. All right. Can you see that there? Vela News article.
Yep.
Okay. So UCI confirms start for late August, followed by the Giro in Vuelta.
Go to
So
the top of that really quickly, the top of the article.
that
How are you going to
is,
control that? That's
yeah,
sitting there. You
I
know?
don't know. I don't know. So here's some key takeaways. The Tour de France will be rescheduled for August to September, following the planned route. UCI Road World Championships in September 20 to 27. The Giro, followed by the Vuelta, dates to be determined. National champs, cycling monuments will so there's not really a set schedule. They're just kind of saying what it might be, and from that, I think their idea is we're going to get in as much as we can. And look, you have these. I just don't even know it's it's possible with what goes on in each town and what's been set up, and then all the carnage that's happened, in Spain, in Italy, anyway. So
what was the kind of the most pushed back race? It would probably be the Vuelta. When did they have the Vuelta on the calendar at this point?
July, August. It's usually September, October. Is that usually what it is?
When are they proposing it now?
They just said to be determined, basically. So
okay.
they're hoping to just do a quick succession. You may get some, non-climber winning one of these races because he's the only one that decides to do the Vuelta or something. I don't know.
How does the weather change as you get later in the year, as you go through the Alps? I mean, are you going to have to change some of the climbs because it's going to be snowed in? And then, you do increase the potential for a non-pure climber to win if you reduce.
Right. I mean, everyone's going to have an asterisk next to this year anyway. But, that was an interesting question. I was thinking of bringing my friend Jonathan back on just simply to talk about that. If the tour does run, what exactly is the weather for those time periods? I'm sure it changes. And it would be interesting. And because that's the Vuelta used to be early before the Giro, I think it was, or between those, but it was, early on the season. It gets moved out late. That makes a big difference for how a lot of that stuff is. So as far as any of those other things, I just think the classics are not going to happen. You don't have enough time in the calendar to really even do that, even though they're still trying to hopefully do that. And, some of this is all about trying to just have, teams ride and get their exposure still, have these races still happen. I mean, so you could just kind of have this business prospect continue to the next year even.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other things that I saw as an interesting idea, I think it was Matteo Trentin floated it at one point, is just doing one Grand Tour. And not just like it's just the Tour de France, but kind of try and create a way to kind of hybridize the three of them into one. This is the 2020 Tour, whatever. And at least
and
that
have a
way,
name that's like Brad Jelena, that's like one.
Exactly. Yeah.
The Vuelta. Giro de Vuelta.
Right. Something like that. It seems like that might be the most realistic approach because the further you have to push this back, the likelihood of being able to get 60-something days of racing and just being unrealistic unless you're going to try and really end the tour on a Wednesday and start the Vuelta on a Thursday. Right. I mean, you've got to move teams across, a reasonable amount of space in short amount of time. The logistics of it seem like a total nightmare, especially if you're going to try and do any other race at the same time.
Yeah, I agree on that. Did you see anything else on those schedules that was of interest to you, or any other interesting comments there? Because then I just thought I'd throw in here. I don't think I have any link I'd shared with you, but Lance Armstrong had said he's calls for riders taking advantage of this situation. And my first thought there is, yeah, okay, I get it, but I don't know that you have actually you might even have less leverage at this point. I mean, if teams just don't have any money to pour into them, what kind of leverage are you going to have at all? And I'm sure he has some ideas, and I think they should be listened to on this, because you never know. But I mean, if there's any way that they can leverage themselves into getting, and it would actually be the teams that would be able to do this, getting a share of the TV revenue, I think that's the only chance you really have. So I don't know if you saw that at all.
I did see that. Yeah. Does that mean you think Tinkoff's coming back?
Do I think what? Tinkoff?
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't he the one always kind of lobbying for that?
Well, I know Vauders has done that too. So maybe Tinkoff has. He kind of got he wasn't so strange, I wonder what would have possibly happened
Right.
with him.
Well, I'd be curious to see how teams really fare through the end of this. I mean, a lot of teams are already stringing teams along as best they can. I mean, if you're taking any hit from this whatsoever, I can imagine too many sponsors are excited about coming back if they were already on the fringe as it is.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, maybe they have a tour and they have to increase the wild card, the wild card invitations because some of the world tour teams aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, if teams like CCC are saying, well, we may just not have a team anymore. I mean,
right.
like I think we were talking about this. The only team that comes out of this is Ineos. The women were actually saying, one of the women's teams was saying, I think we could get through this better than the men because our budgets just aren't that huge. It's not
right.
it's not a huge hit to the sponsor. So what about, let's talk about national championships. I'm going to share this as well, and then you can take a look at. We'll talk about the national championships. So here we have it's USA Cycling 2020 National Championship update. They gave a whole list, obviously the issue with COVID-19, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of their thing here. There's some of the actions we are considering for the national championships are run the event at the scheduled time and location, postponement, change location, modify the event, consolidate and combine events, and cancel. So there's a list here, and the ones that kind of affect us. I mean, people that can look at this, they should have got an email about it. It's probably on the USA Cycling. It's probably up everywhere. But for us, you look down at the Masters National Championships, and they are unchanged at this time. That's for July 30 through August 2, and that's out in Utah. So at this point,
Cedar City, something like that.
Yeah, Park City. Is that what we said?
Cedar City.
Oh, Cedar City. Okay. Is that nearby? I don't know. That's some, anyway, it's some of these other ones obviously, are going to get postponed. You got the Pro Road National Championships. Those are the bigger ones that amateurs, track nationals. I don't know about the track, the para, some of these have been combined anyway. So they have a list.
Just kind of thinking out loud here. So you look at, you've got the Masters race in, when are we looking at here?
July.
Late July. So right now, looking at various COVID resources, the county in which Cedar City falls has 17 positive cases. Do you think they want hundreds of people coming from all across the country? I wonder if USA Cycling has corresponded with the permitting agency at this point to say, hey, are we still on?
Well, yeah, it says here in the last line, it says, next communication. So they give a date of when they're going to update this. And that one, at this point is April 30. So, they're going to be, which is interesting. That's before some of these others that are right around the same time. Those are, putting them out till May 15 for the junior track. But, they've got to do something. I mean, it's just another thing. Hey, everybody, check your events here. If you've already got travel, that's the tough thing too, right? If you got already travel planned, and I don't really even know. Have you heard anything about what airlines are doing with any of the travel issues?
No, I have not. I hear about people that still are able to travel. I'm assuming there's just reduced flights. I assume that there's greater screening at the airports, but I haven't been, so I don't know.
No, but like if you already had paid for a flight, what's the situation?
I don't know.
I gotcha. I'm sure someone has that out there. My wife is supposed to go to Hawaii in November, I think, somewhere. It's already taken care of. Her and my son.
When did she buy tickets?
Quite a while ago. I mean, January.
Okay.
So
she buys them now. They're probably really cheap.
Well, that's the thing. I went to Cabo last year, and I've been getting Volaris Airlines. I've been getting emails from them. One said 80%, 80% off. Like,
wow,
how do you not? I don't know. You might 100% chance you don't get home though. So.
You might get stranded in Cabo.
Right. Well, it could be worse. I mean, until you run out of money. So there's just going through some of this, and you could throw in anything else you have as well. Contador and this is how bad the news is, and the fact that we're even talking about it. Contador he was on a recent interview with some YouTube person, and he recalled this battle with Lance Armstrong and how Lance said, don't F with me. And then Lance has a rebuttal, basically like saying, yeah, it sounds about right. And even Johan, because there was a thing where he wasn't supposed to attack like stage, I don't remember what it was, up is in this near the Pyrenees. And when he attacked, he being Contador, and he wasn't supposed to, and took down Lance, but there's this whole thing, and I'm like, none of this is really new. It all seems to be, the info we've always heard about from these guys, and we're digging up 2009, and we're talking about it. That's how bad, the news stories are going right now. Anything to not talk about COVID. We'll rehash a situation. And Johan, this is what he said about it. He goes, I was the person in charge of the team, and I don't know if I was the director criticizing me or not. All my decisions were in favor of Espana, not Team Armstrong or Team Contador. I knew that in 95% of the cases, our best card to play was Contador, because at that time he was the best. But you look back on it, it doesn't really sound like that's any legendary battles that you wish would come back to the fore at this time that you'd talk about?
What do you mean by battles? Like controversial battles or just interesting?
Le Mans, Bird, Magic, any good ones to rehash now, since we're got nothing going on?
I'm sure there's some really good ones out there. I mean, McGuire Sosa, that'd be fun to watch again, right? That was entertaining.
Right.
Kind of on the topic of really bad stories, I'm looking at a Cycling Tips article where they've pulled all the Strava data to determine which bike is the fastest bike in the world based on average speed. It's like that. Yeah, you're right. They're doing whatever they can just to kind of keep content up there.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, these guys are still writing. They want, try to drive clicks and job and whatever. Was that from the Secret Pro? That sounds like
no.
Their quality.
That's their main page, man. That's like the lead story right now.
Well, they were the
top 20 fastest road bikes in the world, according to Strava.
They were. Have you found any other good news sites in this whole thing? Let's see if there's anything else. I mean, there's Cycling Tips, Cycling News, Velo News, Cycling Weekly is kind of your. I don't know.
I don't do Cycling Weekly very often. I feel like they've got so many pop-up ads where it's just I end up closing it before I click on an article because the page jumps around so much. So I do Cycling Tips, Cycling News are the probably top two I go to. Road.cc is also decent.
Okay, they're still around.
Yeah. They do a really broad amount of like equipment reviews. So if you're interested in any product, they probably look at it. So
I go to Cycling Weekly when I want kind of that newsstand, alien baby type of story. I usually go there and I'll like a type of, and I'm like, so I want some weird, outrageous story. I'll go there and they have, decent stories, and all of a sudden, boom, there's one Cavendish.
How many stories do they have about Jan Ullrich? It seems like that's where you find most about him these days.
That's the Der Spiegel, I think.
Oh, okay.
Right? I don't think they're more on the Cavendish bandwagon at this point.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
The Ullrich Armstrong battles were pretty cool. Those would be interesting to see. That was kind of right when I was paying attention to cycling at some level. So.
Right. Did you when you were starting to pay attention and watch that? I mean, were you a Lance fan? Did you come in already going, he might be a little bit? I came in
probably before it was obvious that something was up. So I was very casual at best. So it was just kind of like, oh, this is cool. It was when you get maybe 30 minutes of it a week on ESPN. So that was kind of it. It was always this kind of mystic thing because it was just so foreign. So
cool I'm gonna correct you and say that that's all that you would get on ESPN, because I'll tell you, once Lance started, they were starting to do 30 plus minutes a day daily on ESPN. So
I don't know if I always had ESPN though at that time in my life.
Yeah, the Ocho, you had the Ocho, and they didn't cover that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's God, it's amazingly slow. Obviously, Zwift is taking off. I think that's about it. I know that we talked a little bit about pros kind of leveraging Zwift to stay relevant. Everybody's got some kind of oddball scheme they're trying to put out there, with Thomas riding 36 hours. A lot of pros are starting to show up on Zwift races and take on various Zwift challenges. So I wonder if that's good for them or not, as they kind of evaluate their base and ramp up for any possible race. Or for this point, they're just kind of free to do whatever the heck they want.
So as someone who hasn't ever done Zwift, I've ridden a trainer, and then I watched Jeff Linder was doing one of his first races. He was talking about it, and he was kind of breaking down power stuff. And he was saying, as far as Zwift racing goes, I'm not talking about, you can get on the trainer and do stuff, but as far as Zwift racing goes, it's more about like average power instead of that. He's talked about how much less power he put out doing real crits, even hard crits, compared to, because it's like the coast, everything's just more, I don't know if it's linear, but you're constantly on it. And rather than, being able to hammer and then sit in and hammer and sit in. So it sounds like to me that a Zwift race would not go to my skills as much as someone who maybe time trials really well.
I've never raced Zwift, but I've been in kind of just the nature of Zwift is you've got tens of thousands of people on the course at a time. So it's inevitable that you'll kind of cross paths and draft off somebody. And yeah, it doesn't feel the same as real drafting if you kind of take your experienced output relative to what your character is doing. So I could see in a racing sense that you're always having to put out some level of effort, while in a crit, yeah, you can probably coast an entire lap and not drop a spot. I could see that being a different experience overall.
Right. So someone will have to maybe, you've done Zwift, you just have done the workouts, you haven't done the racing, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You just spin around like you're going to the park?
Kind of, yeah. There's like some cool terrain features you can climb. So they've done a good job with like, here's the Harrogate World Course, here's the Innisbrook World Course. You can kind of like, oh, that's cool. That's what that climb is kind of like. So it's fun in that regard. They've even got their own little like virtual Zwift world where they've got like Alps to Zwift and whatnot. So kind of fun.
So this is something that I just clicked on here. Let me just read it. The headline is from Cycling News. It says EF Pro Cycling negotiate rider and staff wage cuts. American team, the latest World Tour squad to implement cost-cutting measures. And we've talked about this with Lotto, CCC, several Espana, Bahrain, Merida, all making like some cuts either voluntarily or just doing it. So they talk about the American team said it was negotiating on a one-by-one basis with the 30 rider squad and staff, which includes Tour de France winner Alberto Bettiol, 2018 Tour de France runner Rigoberto Urán, TJ Van Garderen, talented young Colombian Danny Martinez. We're discussing things on an individual basis with each rider, said team boss Jonathan Vaughters. We need their sign-off and willingness to make this work. So evidently it's a voluntary basis at this point, trying to do what they can. I have friends that I think we have a mutual friend that took a pay cut. I know that there's multiple people out there that I know of that are, taking not just cycling, but, in the world in general, taking pay cuts. So it's, obviously they're doing their best to trying to voluntarily have this happen before it's too detrimental. And I imagine, what are these riders going to do? I'm not racing, it's better than still getting paid if they can, I guess.
Right. I mean, the alternative is that, hey, okay, nobody wants to take a pay cut, then the team is gone, and now you have no pay.
Right.
And you have no contract next year. So
right.
It's in I think, the collective interest to take some kind of a hit.
Vaughters' book, which I did the last episode, was a book report on it, or kind of a review. In that book, he goes quite into detail, and then in his 5 pages of acknowledgments, was a little over the top, but he talked Rigoberto Urán, right? I'm thinking of.
Sounds right. I think there's 2 Urans in there, isn't there?
Yeah, Urán. That he stuck by him when before EF came on, and he was super appreciative of that. And, he said he easily could have gone, especially after the just coming off of the third at the Tour de France, he could have gone elsewhere, and he stayed with him. So he was really, really appreciative of that. And so it'll be interesting I'm sure, he's going to be taking a cut as well, like, all these other guys. Probably one of the bigger, and some of those big riders, their salary cut might mean more to the team than, someone on the low end of the totem pole. Obviously, if you're getting league minimum and you're going to take a 20% or even a 50% cut, it's like, yeah.
Right. You need those stars to give up $1 million here or there.
Right. Any other stories before we go out for the week?
I don't really have any stories. So what do you think? What's your feeling? Is there going to be any UCI level racing this year?
Um, I'm going to go out and say, yes, there will be some UCI racing somewhere.
Okay.
Some country that it feels that it can open up and be, they may have to go do like the UFC or one of these where they just rent an island and do it, sequester them out there and just do some
Right.
racing. I mean, that might not be a bad idea.
Grand Tours?
Yeah, I could see maybe one Grand Tour happening, but I mean, at this point, I mean, there's only 3 countries and they're all hard hit. I
Right.
mean, the tour of Oklahoma, maybe, or Montana, Nebraska is one of these states where there's just a bunch of nothing for a long ways.
Maybe. What about we'll say USA Cycling and NCMCA Cycling, racing, road? Any of that can happen?
I honestly believe just look, I'm not an expert at all, but just, there was something else I just saw today where a study from these guys in Stanford are saying that they're doing antibody tests in like Santa Clara area, and it's 85. They think it's about 85% higher of people who have had it
Right.
than they previously thought. I think just my initial reading of the headline, that could be good news, right? I mean, that could mean, oh, it's been here much longer. Our death rate's much lower. We may actually get back to some sort of something at some point. Now,
Right.
there's always the idea of, taking a dip and coming back up, and who knows what summer is going to happen. We don't know. I mean, this is novel, right? So
Yeah.
my guess, looking at that initially, is that something may happen for racing. But I mean, for us bike racing here, it's really the low end. I mean, I'd rather, people getting back to work than worrying about bike racing. I mean, I don't really give a crap as much as that. That's going to happen if everything else gets back to normal. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. But we're talking about bike racing.
Oh yeah. Well,
Podcast,
okay.
and not the work podcast.
Well, it's the work. So I predict that you're going to have some Oakland Grand Prix or whatever, the one at the very end of the year, that you're going to have something like that around there.
Henryville's probably a safe bet.
Right.
There's not going to be a big crowd there. You're not around a lot of people.
No worries. You're probably those people are more worried about you anyway. So
exactly, they're going to contact the folks up in Forest Hill and lock you out.
It was hostile. So what do you think? Yeah, we're going to be racing.
I think so. My feeling, I'm probably going to be totally wrong, but I think group rides, but racing, no. So group rides, yeah. Racing, I don't think so. Okay. I could be wrong.
If you're willing to get back to group rides, that'd be helpful as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it sounds like group rides are probably still happening at some level.
Well, yes, I'm sure they are. I'm not grouping over to coupling.
I think that's just a couples ride.
That's a conscious coupling.
There you go.
Right.
Otherwise, yeah, interesting times, and I think there's definitely some odd, unique challenges that we're kind of figuring out as we go through the whole thing.
Right. Well, any last words of encouragement, or winners and losers, or anything else before we head out?
Oh man, I feel like winners and losers is a toughie, right? I had a call-in question that I forgot to field.
Oh, okay, good.
And you can offer a counterpoint to my point if you'd like. Can you make a chain longer again after you cut it too short?
A bike chain?
I assume bike chain. I hope bike chain.
So I'm sure you can, because I used to do that. But I would be a little, I bet you could. All you would have to do, it depends on which chain. Because when you have the Dura-Ace or the Shimano ones, I'm sure an expert can chime in on this. They might say, no, just get a new chain. But if you cut it too short, you just get a new pin, and then you'd put a new pin in those spots, because that's all the pin is anyway, right? Just connecting those two spots. So you don't need any special link, except for either the SRAM little link or the pin. So you imagine if you have those. But
I think it would also depend on the rider. If you're like a Jason Smith who's putting out 2,000 watts, I'd feel a little concerned about.
I'm thinking about this more. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to link. You'd then have 2 pins, because you'd be doing 2 links. One, why are you cutting it too short? And 2, I would just, you know how to do it? I mean, I just take my chain from the last one, I line it up with the other one, and I just cut it the same spot.
Right.
You mess that up.
We'll have to have that caller figure that one out. another headline that I just happened to come across, and I've only read the headline.
Oh, that's all we get.
USADA begins pilot program for self-administered anti-doping test.
Wait, I'm sorry, you glitched. Or I glitched. What was that? USADA
begins pilot program for self-administered anti-doping test.
Oh, nothing could. I cannot see any problems with that. Why did they have done that all along? Why don't you just mail in your sample? That's
Reuters news agency reported that athletes in a voluntary pilot program.
I'm sorry. Did you say The Onion?
It sounds like it, right? Have been administering blood and urine tests to themselves while a doping officer monitors via FaceTime or Zoom.
Okay. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But at this point, that's really not the biggest. I guess if you have one guy that comes out of this like way too fit or some,
Wait, isn't that you at this point?
But I'm my weight. I'm not way too fit, by the way. If I was way too fit, oh, that's funny.
All relative.
Yeah, that's a good story. I like that one. We'll end on that one. Right. Chris, I appreciate you, of course, coming on, and hopefully we'll get out there. I appreciate you dropping off the saw the other day too.
Oh, did you any progress there?
I'm gonna go buy some wood right now.
Okay.
My wife is probably upset at me right now because I'm supposed to go do that.
You better get out of the office.
Better get out of the office. Everyone, get out either on your Zwift or stay home or do whatever you think you have to do. Chris, once again, thanks. Episode 171, Think Wheels Podcast. Be safe and keep the not the rubber side down when you're doing Zwift. Keep the what?
I don't know.
Keep the stand
keep the
side.
handlebars up?
I don't know. All right. All right, man. Thank you.
Yeah.